Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar hosted by Khatana's Law Chamber on the topic of how to prepare for C-Law exam. Before we begin our session, I would like to request you all to please wait for 2 minutes only so that we can start our session and everyone can join in. Meanwhile, I would like to request you all to please turn off your cameras and mute your mics so that we can have a smooth session throughout. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining today's session, and I appreciate each and every participant and our esteemed guest speakers for taking out time to attend this webinar. So before we dive into our topic of today's webinar, I'd like to start formally by introducing myself. My name is Mahnoor Jamal, and I work at Khatana's Law Chamber as an associate, and it's my pleasure to host and moderate today's webinar alongside Mr. Adil Razik Bhagat, who is going to assist me throughout the session as a co-host. I would like to request Mr. Adil Razik to please introduce himself to our audience.
Hello everyone, my name is Adil Razik Bhagat, Associate at Khatana's Law Chamber. I'm really grateful to Khatana's Law Chamber for giving me such an opportunity to host this webinar. Moreover, I'm really thankful to our respected audience and our esteemed guest speakers कि उन्होंने अपने बिजी स्केड्यूल में से हमारे लिए टाइम निकाला कि वो हमें इस तरह ज्वाइन करें और आपकी रहनुमाई कर सकें सी लॉ एग्जाम के लिए. Khatana's Law Chamber has been providing training to young lawyers and law students since 2018. And today, Khatana's Law Chamber has made a history of conducting webinars on various topics. And today, both of us, Ms. Manur and me, are given an opportunity to conduct this webinar on the topic, which is how to prepare for C-Law exam. This topic is really important for the reason that a lot of people don't know how to prepare for the C-Law exam and they eventually fail it. Therefore, without delaying further time, I would like to start this session by introducing our speakers, starting with Mr. Abdullah Jamshed, a recent LLB graduate from the University of London, has been serving as an associate at Khatana's Law Chamber for the past 8 months. In addition to his legal work, he is an accomplished debates coach, recognized for his impressive expertise and rapport despite his young age. Having successfully completed both the C-Law and Law exams, he is now conducting preparatory classes to assist aspiring candidates in clearing these critical examinations.
Our second guest speaker is Barrister Hafiz Shah, a third-generation lawyer who holds an LLB honors from University of London and is a barrister at law from Lincoln's Inn. He has worked with various organizations such as Women's Aid Trust, Pakistan's Attorney General's Office, and World Wildlife Fund. Now, he is currently working as a partner at Khatana's Law Chamber in Islamabad, and he specializes in complex litigation, transactional law, and legal drafting. He is known for mentoring young lawyers, and Mr. Hafiz is dedicated to advancing the legal profession and supporting emerging talent. I would like to request now each speaker to please further introduce themselves to our audience, starting with Sir Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you're well. Can everyone hear me? Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Barrister Syed Muhammad Hafiz Shah. I will be one of your speakers for today along with Abdullah Jamshed. I'm really looking forward to this session and I hope by the end of it you guys learn something from it and there is something new for you and it helps you with your upcoming exams. Abdullah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, sir. I hope I am audible and visible to everyone, I will assume.
Yes, sir, you are.
All right. Thank you so much, Manu. I don't think I need to introduce myself any further. Adil did a very splendid job in doing so. But as I have recently finished both my law guide and MC law exams, I think I am in a position where I can hopefully guide some of the students who are appearing for the exam the next few months and how they can progress and fulfill their exams completely. I hope this is a very interactive session, and I am thankful for everyone who has come and is part of the session. And hopefully, we're able to guide you in somewhat into ways how you can pass your exams and clear them for your future in the field of law. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah and Mr. Hafiz Shah. Most importantly, now I would like to highlight to our audience that the CLO examination was introduced by Khatana's Law Chamber, guided by the principles laid down in the judgment reported as 2019 SCMR 389. Later on, the order was passed for the initiation for the CLO exam, BVC, and Log Ed, which was implemented in the case of Malik Anik Ali Khatana versus Khalid Javed and others, case number 61. I dropped my network. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, Adil, you are.
I'm really sorry. Actually, internet is having some issue. Okay, so now I request both of the speakers to please share their journey with CLO exam and how did you both cleared it and what tips and tricks you both used, since I'm not sure it's not an easy one. So please could you please please share your journey with us, starting with Sir Hafiz.
ما یو د ایچ سی ټیسټ ورکاوی دا سی والا امتحان هم راغلی نو خدا به اوس دا ځکه چې د خبرې کیږي اوس سړی ډیټیل وځي نو تاریخ باندې ټیسټ وي نو هغه ته
You need to mute your microphone, please. Okay, so I'll briefly share some tips and tricks with you guys on how to prepare the exam. But before we do that, the one thing that I want to highlight is I don't know how many of the students or the participants that are here today are from the University of London's background and how many of you are from the local background. But I'll just keep it generic so that it covers both of the parts. As long as the local students are concerned, I think it is pretty much easier for you guys because you already studied the major modules in your last year, in your second last year and the last year ones. Primarily, it is the Criminal Procedure Code, it is the Pakistan Penal Code that covers the criminal law aspect of it. Then you have this Code of Civil Procedure that covers primarily the civil part of it. And then you have the Qanun-e-Shahadat order, and then you have, after the Khatana-My order, you have specific relief act in the constitution. But since this is CLAW, most of you are, I believe, foreign qualified lawyers or foreign law graduates. So my tips and tricks for you would be that because you have not studied throughout your entire academic years, there are some schools that are offering Pakistani law classes, and there are others that are not offering, and they're only offering you the University of London London's degree, and some extra additional things, including the mock trials, the moot courts. But again, they're not very much relevant to the local legal industry that you will be working in once you join the profession. So first and foremost, consider this exam as a stepping stone for your what will happen in that is, if you start off from now and if you start off with looking after tips and tricks, hearing online lectures or listening to your peers who have already qualified it, most of them will give you an advice that you need to go for online lectures, you need to get the past paper books, and you need to memorize everything. That is not the advice that I would be giving you, because this is your first step into the legal profession. What you need to do is take it very seriously, because this is something that will help you when you enter the profession, particularly the civil law exam, the civil law procedure and the criminal law procedure, because that is what you will be doing when in your initial years. If you're not planning on getting into corporate law, if you're planning on corporate law, then the one thing that the two acts might help you. One is the Constitution and the other is Kanuni Shahadat, because the evidentiary value is the same for both for both corporate and for even for the local the litigation. For example, if you're doing civil litigation or if you're doing criminal litigation, as long as the CPC is concerned, you need to read the act in its entirety, particularly the syllabus that you would be given, because it basically covers everything from how do you institute a suit, the notices, how do you get a stay order, if there is an order against you, how do you appeal against that, if there is judgment against you, how do you appeal against that, how is the civil procedure code applicable to high court and even the Supreme Court. You need to look all of that in pretty much detail. And the one advice that I would give you is, like, give yourself some time. It is plain basic English that you will be reading through. And if you read it 3 to 4 times, the text, although it seems a bit daunting at first, it would seem a bit dry as well. But you need to get into the habit of reading statutes. And this is the best opportunity for you guys, both the C Law exam, both the LawGat exam. This is what helps you. So start off with reading of the statutes, tick off all of the parts that have been mentioned in the syllabus given by the Education Commission or HEC. Once you're done with that, you to conduct group study. So you can study on your own, your friends can study on your own, but my specific advice would be sit with each other before through 2 3 days before the final exam. Have some group study that will help you in clearing out your knowledge that you will be gaining by reading the statutes. And so you start off with civil law, that is the pretty much straightforward and easy one. Then you go on to criminal procedure code and the Pakistan penal code. So criminal procedure code, obviously you need to read the act, both the acts, PPC and CRPC both. But the key to reading criminal procedure code is that you need to read it as a story, and it will help you a lot if you look at it from that particular perspective, as in how a person is arrested, what is the process after that, once he comes into police custody, what is the process after that, once he is on bail, what happens after that. If you start reading the statute section wise, or as long as is given in the syllabus, that will help you a lot with understanding the procedure. One book that I would advise you guys to purchase is, if you have the capacity and if you have the time, because I think you still have some days left, that is the Access to Justice by Justice Fazil Kareem. I'll also write it in the comments in the chat box so that everyone can know about it. That is something that will really help you with your preparation, at least for C Law exam, because that covers Constitution, that covers Kanuni Shahadat, that covers CRPC, PPC, and that also covers Code of Civil Procedure. So for CRPC, you need to read it as a story, as in what happens when a person is detained by the police, then he appears before the magistrate, Then he goes on to his trial. If he is given bail or if he's not given bail, what happens in the trial process, the recording of evidence, and then the final judgment, including the statement of section 342, section 340 subsection 2. So once you start understanding it as a story, it will be very easy for you to also learn the sections and to also understand the process and apply it when the questions arise in your exam. You will have a better idea. As long as PPC is concerned, that is a bit more tough, and you need to, I would not say learn, but you need to read the statute 3-4 times in its own, on its own, to get a better understanding of the statute, because CRPC is procedure. It tells you all about procedure, and the procedure you can learn easily. But as long as the Pakistan Penal Code is concerned, it has all the offenses that have been laid down by the parliament that are punishable under that statute. So you need to read it in more detail, understand it in more detail, discuss it in more detail, so that you have an understanding as to how the punishments are awarded, or as to what section or what criminal act contains what punishment. For that, you need to study it more deeply as compared to the Code of Civil Procedure for civil law and the Code of Criminal Procedure for criminal law. Coming to the Kanun-e-Shahadat, that is obviously practically it is not, you cannot compare it with the Code of Civil Procedure or the Code of Criminal Procedure, but it plays an important part in both of the statutes because it lays down all of the evidentiary tests that you have to satisfy when you are producing your evidence, and that is inclusive of both the trials, be it a criminal trial, be it a civil trial. It is applicable to both of it, although the tests of both the procedures are different. For example, when it comes to a case of civil procedure code, you have to satisfy the test of balance of probabilities. So the test is not very higher. But when you come to criminal law, the test is beyond reasonable doubt, that you might have been listening in your criminal law module as well, that you need to satisfy the code beyond reasonable doubt that the person is accused. For the defense, it only needs to give one doubt or produce one doubt in the prosecution's story for him to get bail or to get acquitted or to get discharged. So Kanun-e-Shahadat again is important, but if you read the Civil Procedure Code Act before, if you read the CR, if you of civil criminal procedure, it takes time to understand. So once you're done with civil, once you're done with criminal, then you can move on to that. Now, coming to the Constitution, Constitution is something that every lawyer needs to have on his fingertips, be it a corporate lawyer, be it a civil lawyer. That is something that will help you in your entire career, at least if you start reading it now, if you start understanding it now, if you start reading judgments on it now. For this particular test, they have already specified the judgments that you have to read. That will help you. I would not say, because it does carry small marks, but in order to achieve a good mark, or in order to have a good stepping stone in your career, you need to take this section very seriously. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पर आपको उसमें आर्टिकल्स भी सारे दिए हुए हैं कि व्हाट आर द फंडामेंटल आर्टिकल्स, what sort of what articles do you need on the judicature, on the parliament, and the other articles that your syllabus have provided. It is very easy when it comes to statutes, constitution, reading through the constitution, understanding the constitution is one of the easiest statutes that has been designed not only specifically for lawyers but for the general public, so that they can understand the statute. The important statute and the easiest statute after the Constitution is Specific Relief Act. Specific Relief Act mentions all of the remedies that you require, all of the equitable remedies, I would say, that you require to have an understanding of the remedies that are provided by this. So Code of Civil Procedure only explains two remedies, or only provides two remedies, that is damages and its stay order or temporary injunction under order section 30, under order 39, rule 1 and rule 2, and damages. Other than that, there is all of these remedies are provided in the Specific Relief Act, permanent injunction, or be it specific performance, be it declaration. All of those are provided in the Specific Relief Act. So for that, it is very easy. If you read it 1 to 2 times, you will understand it. But last advice and the most important advice: read the statutes and then attempt the exams, then listen to the lectures. As long as you have not read the statutes, as long as if you have not read the statutes, you will not have an understanding. You might pass your exam, but you will probably barely pass the exam. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hafiz. I hope the book you suggested and your personal experience you shared will help our audience for the preparation of CLO exam. Mr. Abdullah, now I would like to request you, could you please share your personal experience with us?
For sure, I would love to. I think a lot of the major chunk about the C law, I will add just a bit of from my own experience recently passing the C law exam. कि जब बात आती है एग्जाम पास करने की और जो पढ़ाई करने की, सरफीज ने आपको मेजर चंक बता दिए. हाउ टू रीड द स्टैट्यूट्स, इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू रीड द बेयर एक्ट्स, द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, द सीआरपीसी, द सीपीसी, द पाकिस्तान पीनल कोड, द क्यूएसओ एंड द स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट. ये आपके फंडामेंटल होते हैं, ये आपने पढ़ने ही पढ़ने अगर आपने लॉ पास करना है. The only difference comes is in the weightage of each specific portion of the exam. So it's divided into 5 portions with a weightage of 20 marks each, right? आपको 50 marks overall चाहिए अपने एग्जाम को पास करने के लिए, ताकि आपका वो ग्रेड बन जाए, and then you can move on to either if you have a log at या अगर वो भी क्लियर कर लिया तो आपका बीवीसी पे आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट आ जाता है. So the difference, I would say, especially in my own experience, was not overburdening myself with remembering every single thing about every single statute and every single case law that is present within the constitution जो मेरे टास्क दिए जाते हैं पढ़ने के सिलेबस के अंदर. It is important कि आप कितना specifically remember कर सकते हैं, right? For me, I was more comfortable with the constitution, with the Pakistan Penal Code, with the Criminal Procedure Code and the Civil Procedure Code. So I focused my interest more towards that side, that I can guarantee at least 30 to 40 marks just based on those sessions. And then the rest I prepared, but I didn't prepare as definitively because I wasn't as comfortable doing that. Understanding के सिर्फ से बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बात की थी कि आप सब जब पढ़ो एक दफा आप सबकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बन जाएगी, तो ही फायदा होगा कि जब आप प्रैक्टिस में जाओगे आपको बेसिक्स आपकी बनी हुई होगी. बट फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ द स्पेसिफिक एग्जाम अगर आपने लाइसेंस अचीव करना है, it is important that you strategize really adeptly in how to pass the exams per your criterion, right? It's important that जब आप कमरे में एग्जाम में जाके आप बैठते हैं एग्जामिनेशन सेंटर and you look at your exam, you screen through it once or twice in the opening 5 to 10 minutes. Questions that I can answer without doubt. And then there are some questions which I'm not as sure of, but I'm hopefully, with the amount of knowledge that I have and the amount of learning I've done, I can pass them. Right? That was the same strategy that I applied. Building on something else that Sarafi said in regards to group studying, I think that is very important जब आप एग्जाम देने के लिए बैठते हैं कि आप सबसे डिस्कशन कर सके अपने दोस्तों के साथ, अपने कॉलीग्स के साथ, कि बैक एंड फोर्थ आपके चलते रहे ताकि आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिल्ड होना शुरू हो जाए कि टॉपिक क्या बना हुआ है. With the students that I'm currently teaching as well, उनके साथ भी the process is that I allow them to have a conversation with each other so they get a basic understanding of what the statute is, and if they're stuck in any point, they can openly discuss it to find out where the loophole lies or problem exists in remembering either a specific article or the specific wording of a specific article or section within the law. I think that's quite important. But nothing is achieved without doing any sort of past papers. I think specifically for those in the foreign qualifying degrees who have come from background of O&A levels, जिन्होंने sciences पढ़ी हैं, पहले उन्हें इस तरह के subjects दिए हुए हैं, they learned that MCQs are not the easiest part to do in this specific exam format, right? It's quite difficult. उसके लिए past papers practice करना, I believe आपको online काफी मिल जाएंगे, different websites available. It's not just limited to that, right? There are other things that you might be able to do अपनी prep थोड़ी बेहतर करने के लिए, you can ability, but it depends upon the timeline that you have. I believe the next CLAW exam is coming up on the 9th of February, by my knowledge. And with that, there's about 15 to 20 days left for you guys to prepare for their exam. उसके अंदर there's no point wasting time into experimenting on how we can do it. There's no point being sad over अगर prep शुरू नहीं की भी. It's quite a pertinent time right now. And उसको बैठ के fulfill करने के लिए आप statute जरूर पढ़ें. Look into each and every individual wording of certain statutes and certain phrases in the articles of the Constitution. That is really important because once you memorize something to a certain degree, वो बात आपके दिमाग में फिर बैठ जाती है eventually, right? And it doesn't leave you. I think with just even a bit of practice right now, as Atul mentioned, I've been at this law firm for quite some time. Working in certain fields of law has of the orders within the CPC, most of the statutes that the sections that exist within the Pakistan Penal Code. I think that is quite a helpful experience when you're attempting one of these exams. I think that primarily fixates on how you can prepare for your exam. And I believe that if there are any questions that the floor is open to, we can address those as well. Because this primarily, I hope it covers how you can prepare for exams in a very short amount of time as well.
Thank you very much, both of the speakers, for sharing their journey with us and the tips and tricks as well. I'm sure your tips and tricks will be very helpful to many students and others who may not have been aware of the significance of the CLAW exam. So, Mr. Abdullah, I would like to request you to kindly explain how the CLAW exam is structured, including the modules, their content, and marks distributed to each module.
All right, I did address this a bit in my own memorandum, but the exam is MCQ based. There are 100 MCQs, and the criterion to pass is to get half marks. So 50 marks पे आप pass हो जाते हैं, 50 से कम है तो आप fail हो गए, ज़्यादा आ गए तो that means that you've done a wonderful job in preparing for it, right? Each of the specific portions, so that covers the Constitution number one, the civil side, which is the Civil Procedure Code, the criminal side, which undertakes the CRPC, the Criminal Procedure Code, and the Pakistan Penal Code. We have the Qanun Shahadat Order, and we have the Specific Relief Act, and this is the specific syllabus that you have for the C law. Certain things are similar in LawGat, certain things are different in the LawGat exam. Then, उन सब portions की weightage 20 marks per होती है, right? It's divided upon. For example, the constitutional cases might bear 5 marks throughout the entire of portion of your exam, while the articles of the constitution might bear 15 marks, right? So it's divided in various ways. And again, वही वाली बात है कि आप पे डिपेंड करता है आपको उसको कैसे प्रेप करना होता है. That's a 2-hour exam. It happens about 4 times per year after every 3 months, if I'm not wrong. And it's not set in stone. Dates आपको शायद पहले मिल जाती हैं by the Education Testing Council, the ETC basically, but it can vary, it can swing. For example, last year, the login was supposed to happen in August. It was delayed until January. So the dates are not fixated. They can change a bit. But आपकी focus होना चाहिए कि उसको आप as soon as possible, when you're done with your degree, आपको opportunity मिलती है अपना exam sitting एक sitting में दो sitting कि आप clear कर सको law as a practicing lawyer. I hope that answers your question, Manu.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Now I would request you all to please, we are going to take a short break, 5 minutes break, and then we are going to start the webinar session again. So please, we are going to take 5 minutes and then we're going to rejoin it.
Welcome back. Thank you so much, our speakers again. Without further delay, I would like to continue the session. Mr. Hafiz, I would like to request you to please explain, are group studies really effective? Because a lot of teachers often ask students to prepare for it in a group.
Yes, Adil, group study is very important, particularly for exams like these. The problem with these exams is they're mostly knowledge based. So in order to test your knowledge, group study is one of the most efficient ways that you can achieve that. So for that reason, it is very important that you at least have group study with your friends, with your colleagues, or those who are appearing for the exam, because you're essentially studying the same topics and you will be examined on the same topics. So it helps you a lot when you're preparing for the exam, particularly after you've done your individual study and then you have to discuss it with someone, because when you discuss it with someone in a group session, it helps you retain information, rather than individual study where retaining information is a bit difficult.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hafiz. That was really informative. So, Mr. Abdullah, I would like to request you to please tell us that how many attempts do we have to appear in C-Law exams, and how many times is the exam held within a year? Mr. Abdullah?
Yes. Am I again audible, visible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Right, wonderful.
Ms. Banu, please repeat your question for Mr. Abdullah.
Oh, okay, Mr. Abdullah, I would like to request you to please tell us that how many times do we have to appear in the C-Law exams, and how many times is the exam held within a year?
So you can appear a maximum of 7 times for both the law GAT and the C exam, but you have to pass it just once. After you clear it, आपका खत्म हो गया, it's part of your record. Now you can start applying for your license, professional license to practice law. To my knowledge, the exam happens about 4 times in a year. So it's after a segment of every 3 months कि आप exam होता है. But those numbers are not definitive because the schedule can change. आपका ETC से जो एजुकेशन टेस्टिंग काउंसिल है उसके साथ ये लिंक्ड होता है, वो आपको एक स्केड्यूल बना के आई थिंक एट द स्टार्ट ऑफ द ईयर विच इज जनवरी वो एस्टैब्लिश कर देते हैं, but it's not set in stone. Sometimes the dates can get changed, sometimes it can be held after another month, after 4 months, so you're never aware of it. But maximum this happens every 3 months. जैसे कि आपका सब करीब तरीन जो आ रहा है वो फ्राइडे सॉरी इट्स ऑन द 9th of February if I'm not wrong. So उसके बाद inshallah we'll see it after a period that the exam will be held again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah, for sharing this information. Mr. Hafiz, I would like to request you to please share any inspiring story about someone who struggled with the CLO exam but still managed to pass again all odds. Because मैंने खुद भी CLO पिछली दफा फेल कर दिया था, तो मोटिवेशन एक अच्छी चीज है जो लोगों को मिलेगी, तो मेरे ख्याल से वो बेहतर होगा. प्लीज मिस्टर हफीज.
I think the key lies in preparation. Most of the time, what people do is they take the exam very lightly. They feel like they have completed a whole they have completed a whole 3 years of degree or 5 years of degree for log exam or the C-law exam. But what you need to essentially understand, if you've studied the 5 years program, what that does to you is that it gives you knowledge throughout a span of 5 years or throughout a span of 3 years. What these exams do is they test you on every aspect of the law that there is, particularly on the procedure side. So I think the key automatically lies in your preparation and how And you don't need to think that this is an easy exam. This is definitely not an easy exam. This is a stepping stone into your future, so take it very seriously. And I feel like if you give it a week or probably 5 to 6 days at max and give it your complete attention in that span of time, you are efficiently, you prepare enough in that at least bear pass it. If you need to score good on, you need to have at least give it a month, give it 2 weeks, give it 3 weeks to prepare the exam, because the content is a lot. And what happens in the exam is they ask for specific sections. They examine you on specific sections of the statutes. So if you have not statutes and you've only attempted past paper exams, or you only listen to online lectures, that will not help you uh, pass the exam or achieve a good score on the exam. So for that, it is very important that you need to read the syllabus through and through. Once you're done with that, you yourself will realize when you're attempting the past paper exams, it will become very easy for you to attempt the exam as well and to understand the exam as well. So for that reason, preparation is key. There can be no motivation. The only motivation is that you need to get through with the exam, and for that you need to prepare.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hafiz. Mr. Hafiz, I would like to request you to please add something else, that I have heard a lot of times that the questions which are given under CLO exam are mainly based on common sense. How true is that?
Some of the questions, I would say 10 to 20% of the exam is based on common sense. The best part about MCQs is that the answer is right there in front of you. They've already given you the answer. You only need to find the correct answer. So, but common sense, you can only rely on 20% of the exam that you will feel that these are pretty straightforward questions and that you can attempt them pretty easily. I think that is also the deciding factor in most of the exams where the people fail by 5 marks, by 10 marks, or 15 marks. I think that is where it also comes into play. If you are better with that, it is much more easier for you to attempt the exam. But again, preparation, they have given you a syllabus, you need to read through the syllabus and then you need to attempt the exam. Without doing that, it becomes very difficult for you to pass the exam. Most people do pass the exam, but they just barely pass it. I think that is only the requirement as well. But understand that it is the start of your profession. You are going to start it after this, after the law exam, after the C law exam. So it is just better to give it time in the starting process rather than relying on it later in your profession.
Thank you very much, Sir Hafiz. So, as you mentioned earlier, is preparation के लिए for CLAW exam, time management is very important since the exam can be quite challenging, right? So, for those students who are balancing their internships or work after graduation, सब काम करते हैं साथ में ही study भी करनी होती है. So, what strategies and would you suggest to effectively divide time and maintain focus given the demanding nature of this exam that requires thorough preparation and dedication? And how did you both speakers manage time to prepare for this exam?
Okay, if you're working at a certain most people are attempting these exams, they are there and they're looking for jobs or for internships or for associate jobs, whatever it may be. But the problem with that is it gets difficult. You're right, but again, at least क्योंकि HEC आपको ये benefit जरूर दे है कि आपको महीना पहले आपको बता देता है कि यार इनको एग्जाम होना है. So for that you have a whole month that you can plan out, and if you only take out 2 hours or maximum 3 hours, I think 2 would still suffice. If you take out 2 hours for at least 2 weeks or maybe probably 3 weeks per day, again it depends on your priorities and it depends on your working hours. But अगर आप रात को घर जाते हो 2 घंटे रात को सिर्फ बैठ के पढ़ लेते हो, I think that is also more than enough. But it needs to be at a stretch of 2 to 3 weeks, not just to, you need to. What was your second part?
I asked what strategies would you suggest to effectively divide time and maintain focus given the demanding nature of this exam.
No, again, just you need, if you have 2 to 3 weeks on your hand, I think it is quite manageable. It is not that demanding. I know I can understand the course is quite extensive, but if you take out time, 2 to 3 hours maximum per day is very much enough for you. But again, with that also, if you are doing an internship, if you are an associate or you're practicing somewhere and you are supposed to give the exam, I think that in itself also gives you an opportunity if you're working in a law firm. So if you're studying at your own during the night or after your office hours, so you can always come back to your seniors, you can always discuss that with them, as compared to the last 2 to 3 days, which gets quite difficult and not everyone. As far as my exam was concerned, I had recently came back from England and I was supposed to appear for the exams. And I think I'm quite lucky in the sense I was working at a law firm at that time, and we had 3 to 4 or maybe 5 people of us who were supposed to appear for the exam. So what we would do was take out 2 to 3 hours, study it on our own, and the next day we would have like an hour or half an hour or maybe 2 hour session depending on our schedules. We would sit together and we would discuss all of the statutes, and that is what helped us get through the exam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hafiz. I'm sure your explanation will help our audience avoid all these common mistakes in the future, and they would really manage their time for preparing. So, Mr. Abdullah, as Mr. Hafiz mentioned, that these common mistakes, that managing this time is very difficult, right? So, could you please shed some light on what kind of mistakes do students make, and what steps or strategies can people use in order to mitigate these mistakes?
I think that's quite an interesting question because as Rafi said, आपके सामने आपको चार options दी हुई थी MCQs के अंदर and the answer is right there. So the first mistake is obviously that you don't prepare enough for the exam, right? You don't read any of the statutes thoroughly. You don't look at each and every word that is present within that specific article or specific section or specific order of any of the given statutes extensively. आप नहीं देखते, आप एक दफा skim through करते हो, आप कहते हो कि you know what, I've looked at it enough. It looks very beautiful. Now I'll get done with it and I won't look at it ever again. Right? That's not how it's supposed to work. Number one would be that. Number two, it is an element of self-doubt as well. Because अक्सर ना जो examiner होता है, from my experience, I will share that at least I can't talk about Sir Rafi's experience. He quite shared it, but it's a bit different from mine. They give you one or two options in some questions that are synonyms, but they're not the exact wordings, right? For example, Article 31 of the Constitution के ऊपर पिछले 2 बार सीलों में एक सवाल आया था regarding the Holy Quran Sunnah के ऊपर mention की हुई थी बात. Majority of the students who gave that exam with me were really confused that, we thought we saw that, but when we looked at option number D or looked at option number A, they were quite similar. So we couldn't understand कि हम कौन सा option pick करें because we were doubting ourselves in the middle of the exam. So that's something that you're not supposed to do, right? अगर आपके अंदर इतना belief है कि आपने जो पहला option पढ़ा है and that is the correct option and you have read that before in that specific statute या आपने उसको पहले कहीं देखा where it looks familiar to you, don't doubt yourself that this is either the right or wrong option. Just go with it because आपकी confidence होना एक exam के लिए is very very important. A lot of students actually fail this exam by either 1 mark, 2 marks, maybe 5 marks based on some small mistakes they made in terms of confidence. You weren't able to actually identify within ourselves was this the right or wrong answer. हमें पता होता है, we are aware that that's the right answer. And when you look at the statute the next day when our answer sheets are there, we're like, you know what? I chose that first, but then I erupted off and put option D into that. वहाँ पे हम mistake कर लेते हैं. So I think having number one, good experience looking at the statute and reading them very thoroughly, and number two, having the confidence that you trust yourself that you are making the right choice is very important. I think उससे बढ़कर आपके पास कोई और option बन नहीं सकता because you're in that examination hall for 2 hours. You have to remain the entire time. There's nothing you can do except take your time, look at the option, the question thoroughly, look into each individual answer and see which one fits the most, right? this idea regarding common sense जो सरफी सी बात कर रहे थे कि you do apply common sense to it, right? It is the word that makes the most sense or the area that makes the most sense that is the most applicable to that specific question जिसको आपको pick करना चाहिए because that will ultimately be the right answer. So if you can crack that code early on by doing past papers especially, you're in a better position to pass your actual exam than you would be as opposed to somebody जो बिल्कुल ही ill prepared होके exam देने जा रहा है. I hope that answers your question a bit as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah, for your kind advices. However, what I think is that stress and anxiety can be overwhelming during CLAW exam preparation, which becomes a primary step towards the small mistakes people do while preparing for the examination. What strategies would you recommend for candidates to not only manage stress, but also effectively memorize and retain the barracks?
Okay, that's a very close to heart question you've asked, Adil. I think something that's really important when either managing stress or anxiety when dealing with certain exams is कि आपकी prep सही नहीं हुई होती. That is the primary reason that it causes. Because what are the certain elements to that? You're running out of time. You haven't looked into what the syllabus is. You are either, as a previous question was asked, you're either working somewhere as an intern, as an associate, or some other organization. आपने अपना एग्जाम पास करना है तो आपका वही टाइम फ्रेम के अंदर आपका सवाल बन जाता है कि यार आई डोंट हैव इनफ टाइम. हाउ डू आई प्रिपेयर वेल फॉर दिस स्पेसिफिक पोर्शन ऑफ माय सिलेबस, राइट? So it is effective time management before your paper, the day of your paper, and it is effective time management during your paper. Number one. Number two, when it comes to memorization, I think the best skill I learned back in even my university days was to write everything that I'm having difficulty remembering down because it's muscle memory in my opinion. I don't know if it works for everyone, but it really worked well for me and for some people who I've taught before that writing down certain areas, for example, how many fundamental rights there are, right? What specific subsection of Article 199 deals with the writ of habeas corpus? Some of these issues, when you are for with your hand, number one, number two, वो चीज आपके दिमाग में बैठ जाती है. So it's better off कि आप चीज लिख लिख के बार बार उसको मेमोराइज करने की कोशिश करें instead of just looking at it, reading it, and then being like, you know what, I can just inherently understand what's going on because it's not that simple, right? It takes a bit of dedication, a bit time lag jata hai. But these are what, in my opinion, would be. I might be wrong in this approach, but these strategies have worked really well for me in the past for both my law GAT and C law because I was working in this particular law firm, Khatana's Law Chamber, during both my exams. So I was really beneficial. It was really helpful for me. I had a very good team to support me, to help me out. My seniors were really helpful in my preparation. And I was able to manage my anxiety and stress before the exam stage itself. So I wasn't worried when it came to the actual day of the exam. I hope that helps address some of the major issues we face while doing this exam, especially.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah. So, as you said कि इन लोगों की प्रिपरेशन नहीं हुई होती तो स्ट्रेस ज़्यादातर उनको होता है. तो आई वुड लाइक टू ऐड दैट कि इवन दो जब मैं भी एग्जाम देती हूँ तो एक दिन पहले मुझे स्ट्रेस, मेरी प्रिपरेशन पूरी होती है बट स्टिल आई एम स्ट्रेस्ड आउट कि यार कुछ रह ना जाए या कुछ गलत ना हो जाए क्योंकि ऑब्वियसली बेयर एक्ट्स होते हैं, उनको रिटेन करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. सो व्हाट एडवाइस वुड यू गिव ऑन दैट कि उसको कैसे टैकल करें हम?
There's no particular way you can address that. I think that is an inherent psychological struggle that you have internally that is person to person, it varies. Last minute anxiety is very true. It happens to the best of us. There's nothing wrong with it. But usko effectively manage karna is very difficult. I would suggest that I think this is something that I started back in my O-level exams when I was doing my Cambridge exams was time pay. It was to be assured of my preparation 2 days before the exam so that the day before the exam I can skim through everything and then any time to either relax or not focus completely on that specific exam, right? Uska fayda क्या होता है, sort of like reverse psychology. If I'm not focusing on that specific thing, I don't have enough time to think about it, and I don't have enough time to worry about it. Right? It might not be the best approach, but it's something that has worked for me in the past, and it's worked quite effectively as well. That I give myself about 5 to 6 hours on that last day to not worry about my exam. Right? Either I watch a movie or I read a good book or I meet some of my friends or I discuss something with one of my seniors, right? It gives me an escape from the actual burden of going and giving that exam. That help relaxes your brain quite a lot, and it eases you up that it's not the end of the world, right? Given that you have 7 attempts to clear that exam, obviously आपको डर लगेगा कि मैंने बार-बार fail नहीं करना. I want to get it done in maximum 1 or at the very least 2 attempts. But it's nothing to be worried about, something to be stressed about too much, because ultimately हो जाता है, right? Once you read something once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 10 times at max especially, आप eventually उसको cover कर लेते हो. So there's nothing that you can do to extensively deal with any stress that you're having the day before the exam. But whatever that you do generally अपनी day-to-day life के अंदर to help calm you down before any important decision, you can attempt that same exact activity. That will really be helpful जब आप अपने exam के दिन पे जाएंगे फिर.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdullah, for sharing your opinion on this. मेरा भी 9th को एग्जाम है, तो आई होप वो आपके एडवाइस से मेरा अच्छा हो जाए. Mr. Hafiz, I don't know if you remember, but I used to say that practical experience is enough to pass this exam. So I would like to request you to please share your opinion, that is internships or are internships or practical experience are enough to pass this exam or not?
Okay, so in your initial 6 months, you are exploring yourself. You can't grab your head around a lot of concepts, a lot of processes that are involved in the process. But what happens is, it will not help you unless and until you read the statutes on, because every employees do everything that the clerk do, it has all written down. But unfortunately, our practical experiences are somewhat that people say that you should join the practice or you should be working somewhere, will better understand them. But in the first initial 6 months to 1 year, it is only because it's senior as well. You don't know if he's practicing in the high court, he will have specific he can guide you with those specific things. But as long as you're practicing with him, it will not help you with the exam. If you're practicing with someone who's practicing in the lower courts, or if you're or if the special tribunals, they will only help you with that, with those specific parts of it. So in order to understand picture, what you need to do is read the statute, then discuss with your senior.
जोर से पट्टी बांधता कंधरा आपको पट्टी नहीं करवानी है बुला छोड़ा please please mute your mics. Okay, thank you very much, Sir Hafiz. It was really informative, जो आपने बताया. Now, since we are short on time, so I would like to request the audience to please ask questions. I'm sure बहुत सारे questions होंगे इस related. So you all are requested to please ask your questions.
Assalamu alaikum. My question to the speakers is that, are there any relevant topics or specific topics that the student should focus on while preparing for the exams? Because all the topics that could become overwhelming for a student. So what are the main topics that a student should focus on to be able to have a bit of confidence to attempt their exams?
Okay, Muram. So what happens in that is, just like before I mentioned, that you start off with the procedural aspects of it, because that is something that you can easily understand and you can easily grasp, because you can understand that as a story. So start off with those, and then what HEC has done is they have provided you a syllabus outlining how many marks can you get out of each of the statute. As in 20 marks for you. So probably 10 and 10 from the RBC. On the other hand, if you see the Code of Criminal Civil Procedure is pretty much easy to follow. It is very easy to understand those concepts as well. And it carries 20 marks as well. So you will yourself realize which part you want to prepare more for. Again, the passing marks are 50%, so you will be targeting for 50%. And again, each and every person has their own personality. Some of them would enjoy reading Constitution, some of you would enjoy reading the Civil Procedure Code, some would enjoy reading PPC, CRPC, Specific Relief Act. So that is completely up to you. Although this is a bit lengthy, but it is coverable and it is doable, at least to get 50 marks. So I think it should not be that overwhelming. As long as you plan it out, as long as you have an understanding of how you can go about it, you cannot be studying all of the statutes simultaneously because they confuse you and you will not probably relate in a lot of information. So take it stepwise and it won't be much of a problem.
Thank you, sir. That was really informative for me, and it was quite understanding to know which topics the students should focus on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A question that, sir, you had previously mentioned that there are some specific books through which we can prepare for our exams. Could you please highlight all the relevant materials or books again for us?
So I had mentioned the book in the previous chat. I will type it out again. That is Access to Justice by Justice Kareem. What that book essentially does is it helps you understand the theory. It includes all of the topics that you would require to understand. It includes all of the applications, at what stages they are supposed to come at in a criminal trial, in a civil trial. It explains the constitution as well. It explains the constitution as well. I think to some extent it does explain the Specific Relief Act as well. So that is one book that covers most practical aspects of the profession. So if you have time, it is a bit of a lengthy book, but if you have time, do go through that book. It will help you understand in a much more better way as to how the trials operate in Pakistan.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question from the participants?
Please ask a question if you have a question.
Sir, so I guess my microphone is on, right, sir? You can hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear
you are
you.
audible.
Yes, yes. So, sir, I have a question regarding law. So, like, sir, I have heard like there is like there is one which is different than law and GAT. Like, I just want to know, for example, if I want to like prepare for both of them collectively, then which are the acts which I should like go first so that I have relatively come 50 to 60% of both CO and GAT as well. So can you please guide me around that?
I think the key in that lies in the syllabus in itself. I think Constitution is one of them, CPC is one of them, CRPC is one of them, PPC is one of them, and Qanon-e-Shahadat. I think in both of the syllabuses, one specific act that is not included in LOGAT, that is Specific Relief Act. And that is important well students because in order for them to understand which code from the code, other than that, I think other than Specific Relief Act, CLOS syllabus is somewhat similar to the LOGAT exam. I think LOGAT exam has a bit of more other acts as well. It includes jurisprudence as well. It includes additional rules and act as well. So CLO, if you prepare for CLO, you obviously somewhat like 30, 40, maybe 50% you also cover for LOGAT, but LOGAT in itself have much more content as well that you need to cover.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Sorry, there was some issue with my mic earlier. Mr. Abdullah, if you could kindly shed some light over my contention. Even though the syllabus for the law and the C law exam is more or less the same, however, I've seen this trend of people easily passing law GAT but failing C law exam. I have sat for both these exams myself too, and I personally feel like the nature of the questions in both these exams is very different despite the similar syllabus. How do you think one should tackle with this issue? And secondly, what is your viewpoint on the fact that if both the exams are having a similar syllabus and all the other criteria are the same, shouldn't there be only one exam of the?
I think it's an interesting question because we've dealt with this problem personally, as at least I have in this regard. कि जो examination style होता है, it's very similar. Obviously, it's the same MCQs. It's almost the same syllabus, just a couple of differences in international law jurisprudence and the legal practitioners rules and rules act that is present in the law act. However, from my opinion, it is more of a psychological issue than it is an actual examination issue. कि जब एग्जाम देने आते हैं, you're less worried or less, dillified regarding the law at exam than you are the C law. C law में it's just another added burden because this is specifically for those students जो already करके पाकिस्तान में practice करने के लिए कर रहे होते हैं, right? So it's an added pressure for us कि हमने उस exam को pass करना है. So it might be that I haven't felt, at least in my experiences, that there is a strong difference between the kind of questions or the technicality of the questions that come in either the law or the law. I believe they're very similar in nature, and being all this almost a similar syllabus, I wouldn't see any disagreement to that. But I think your second question is more interesting in regards to the similarity or if there should be one exam for both the students or there should be. I think for us, हमें test करने के लिए it's quite important because हमारे लिए एक added burden बन जाता है कि हम पाकिस्तानी लॉ या जो लोकल लॉ है वो अपनी डिग्री में बिल्कुल भी नहीं पढ़ते. It is practically non-existent. Once we come into the actual practicing of law, or once we join a law chamber or law firm, that is when we get our primary exposure to how the relevant laws of Pakistan apply to our day-to-day and how can we address and help clients. I would suggest that there should be certain changes in the syllabus. It is quite important because ultimately you're preparing the same exact syllabus, the same content for two different exams at two different times, at two different days of the year or days of the month, and आप जाके उनको clear करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो, right? There's no actual difference. However, there should be certain changes added that would either help the local law the foreign law graduates especially to understand the particularities within Pakistani law and the local laws that exist. Because this differentiation otherwise doesn't make any sense. The fact is not that much an added burden कि उसके लिए आपने पूरा नया exam system बनाने कहती है. If there are other amended changes added to the C law in the coming years, I think that would be more beneficial for the students जो बाहर से या फिर foreign degree करके practice करने आते हैं ताकि उनकी बेहतर understanding बन जाए. Otherwise, there's no point of having two separate exams. However, given the circumstances we do have two separate exams. It's a good experience for us to get a better understanding of how the system really operates. So I hope that does address your question, Sarava.
Yes, thank you so much, Abdullah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to both of our speakers for answering the questions. And if you have any more questions, I'm sure बहुत सारे सवाल होंगे, so they will be answered in the group. You can ask those questions after the session. So I would request Mr. Adil to please conclude the session since we are short on time.
Mahnur, I would just want to briefly answer this one question that has been asked by Ibrahim in the chat box before we do that.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
Ibrahim
Please.
Candidates deal with questions they're unsure of during the exam. So Ibrahim, my advice to you would be that there is a concept known as an informed guess. So what happens is, and it is pretty much easy for MCQs. Going back to the idea that we were talking about common sense, I think that is what helps you in those questions. At least you can, by having an informed opinion, you can at least deal with one or two, or you can have adds somewhat of information. I can, for example, if there are A, B, C, D, so you can easily say A is not the answer, C is not the answer, and you're confused between B and D. That is where your gut feeling comes in. That is where you understand that I can answer this question, or this might be the right answer. The trick in that is the first question that you see or the first answer that you want to take, go right away with that one rather than deciding on if it should be B or if it should be D. If you think it is D straight away looking at the option, then go for that. That is what will help you. I think the first gut feeling is always right rather than just thinking about it and wasting your time during the exam.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hafiz Shah. And thank you so much, Ms. Manur, for assisting me throughout the webinar. Thank you to our audience as well for joining us today. I hope the importance of the CLAW exam and effective strategies were helpful in now. It's evident that the CLAW exam is not just a formally, but a crucial, it's not just a formality, but a crucial step towards ensuring professionalism and competence in the legal field. To our audience, we hope this session has been both insightful and motivating. If you have any additional questions or need further clarification, please don't hesitate to post them in the group. Our speakers will be to engage with you and provide their expert guidance. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.